Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome back, everyone. Once again, thanks for coming. This is our fourth meeting, and this is also going to be likely the last meeting that we're going to hold on ethics, at least for the introductory part of the course. In the next class, we're probably going to move either to political and economic philosophy, or metaphysics, or epistemology, which are significantly different from what we've gone over for the past 3 weeks. But today's kind of like a recap/review. So before we get into the lesson, just some quick updates. If you happen to do the homework from last time, please email it to email address right here. I would really appreciate that. Also, I think that I forgot to send the link last time. If I did, here's the link for the newsletter. And this is also our current Teen Civic Engagement Program website. It's under development, but I thought it would be cool to share. So here, I'll send the link in the chat. Hold on. And if any of you are interested in contributing, definitely let me know. It looks like this. And there's the link. All right. So this lesson is going to be different from previous lessons in that we're actually going to go over several ethics bowl cases. And then we're going to be applying what we learned in the past 3 lessons to evaluate these cases. So we have 5 cases. However, last time we only got to finish like 3. So we're actually going to take a vote on which ones we want to do. Hold on, let me share it. Where is it? Okay, so can everyone see this text? Awesome. So yeah, let's take a vote. I'll just really quickly introduce all of the cases first. The first case is about driverless cars, and it asks, if we were to have driverless cars that are put into a situation in which they're forced to kill someone or forced to crash into something, how should they make that decision? The second one is, if someone is sick, should they be working if their family and their children depends on it? The third one is about a stolen bike and how you should react to immoral situations. The fourth one, actually, sorry, let me type it in the chat so that you guys don't have to remember them. So first one's about driverless cars. Second one's about working while sick. Third one is stolen bike. The fourth choice is someone lying at a picnic. And it asks what you should do in the situation where a young child lies seemingly inconsequentially. And then finally, the fifth case is about a science fair in which someone is paired up with someone else who is really bad at science. So, like, what do you do in that situation? So why don't we take a vote? Which one do we want to do first? And we can cover about 3 of them. Just type the number that you want to do first. I think we have more ones. Okay, we also did 1 in the other session, so that's great. Let's start with 1. And for the 3 of you that just joined, right now we're going over several high school ethics bowl cases. That's going to be the focus of today's meeting, and we're going to be applying what we learned from before to evaluating this. So since it's long, I'm not going to read the entire thing. So please let me know when you're finished reading it. Is that better, Chris? Oh, you meant down. Okay. Wait, ignore the study questions. We're not doing those yet. Okay, I'll give everyone about 1 more minute to finish up. Oh man, we have 2 more new people. To the new people, we're going over the ethics bowl cases. So we're starting by reading this one about driverless cars. Okay, is anyone not done? If you're not done, I'll keep the text on the screen so you can just read it while we're discussing. So first of all, just a quick introduction to High School Ethics Bowl. I realized that I forgot to introduce this before we started. High School Ethics Bowl is a philosophy competition for high schoolers. It's fairly popular. It's like the philosophy equivalent of Science Bowl or Math Bowl. These study questions are typically the questions on which they base their discussions questions on. So it's helpful to base our discussions on the study questions as well. However, we don't have to follow each question directly. So I'm also going to be proposing questions that are only tangentially related to these study questions. So my first question to propose is about the last paragraph here. It talks about what counts as safety. There's a lot of situations when we're driving cars, or driverless cars in this case, in which the car has no option but to choose what to hit if it's going too fast and something like that. So this sentence here is really interesting. It says, imagine a van with a family of 5 ahead suddenly brakes, and your driverless car can either brake or potentially hit the family, swerve to the right, or swerve to the left. So just to make that situation a bit simpler, let's answer question 1. Given the choice between endangering 5 lives or your life, should a car in which you are the sole occupant be programmed to endanger you, or should it be programmed to save you? And you can unmute yourself and talk in the voice channel.
I think all the cars, all the driverless cars should be programmed to save like the user.
Okay. And that doesn't matter how many people they're like damaging at the expense of the user, right? Do you think?
But their cars are also going to be programmed to like save them. So
Okay. And wait, sorry. And why do you think that?
well, that's okay. That's sort of like how we are now, but and then because wait, let me think.
Sure. I can get back to you. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
Actually, I think all the cars should be like connected on a network, and that they can like communicate faster than we can.
Well, I guess that would be the optimal solution, but let's assume that the van ahead isn't a driverless car. Annie says in the chat, save you, because if all cars are programmed to save their own people, then it would be more possible that the cars that are about to hit find ways to save the people on them. Let's not consider that. Let's make it like absolute. You're absolutely going to hit them, and if you hit them, they're absolutely going to die. Let's assume that we're not like 100 years in the future where all the cars are coordinated. So the risk is there. And he says it'll also act more like humans since humans will do the same thing. Why do you think it's important that the cars should act like humans? Okay, Rowlett says the driverless car is something that should make your life easier, not endangering your life. And same question to you, I guess. Why is that so? Rowlett says because that's its purpose. Well, not necessarily, because I mean the point of this discussion is to ask what is the purpose? Because obviously the purpose of cars is not to kill someone. The purpose of cars is for transportation. But when you're put in the situation where someone has to die, you could argue that the purpose is not to kill yourself, but then there's an equally good argument that the purpose should be to save more lives. So, what's your reasoning for that being the correct purpose? And he says, because the risk of driverless cars will remain mostly the same as cars we have right now, along with all the benefits.
It's because you're the one who buys the car, so it's supposed to save you, not save other people.
Well, that's not necessarily true with other things, right? Let me think of an example. Um, what's a good example? Actually, okay, I see your point, actually. That's probably true. That's a good argument. But okay, the other side of that argument, Chris, I guess, is that car manufacturers don't only have an obligation to their customers because they're providing an essential service of like allowing people to get around. So is that also don't they also have a obligation to society? I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But okay, Intellion says, I would program it to endanger me because a family of 5 might have children. Killing children is terrible. So you think that in general it's more important to save more lives. So that's also a valid argument. Um my question for you then is saving more lives the only criterion that you think that the car should make the decision on? This is kind of like the trolley problem, right? Except it's a bit more situated in the real world. And he says, we're just afraid that driverless cars can't react like us, but it's human nature to save ourselves. So the risk of driving will remain the same. Well, I have the same question then, which is why is it always better to follow human nature? You could argue that um, why is it not good to try to improve on human nature? Like just because things are the way they are doesn't mean that they can't be better. And maybe it is better if the car just chooses to save more lives. Okay, let me bring a new element into the question. Remember that, or sorry, did you go ahead? Hmm? I think you cut out a bit. I didn't hear you. Okay, well, what I was saying is that the difference between this and the trolley problem is that in this case, these automobile manufacturers are making a universal choice, meaning that in the trolley problem, it's just one person choosing to kill one person or five people. Whereas in this problem, whatever the programmers choose is going to happen every single time in every single situation, meaning that every single time a driverless car is going to encounter this kind of situation, it's going to make that same choice for everyone. So the question is it even moral for a machine to be making that decision? Or is it better just to have maybe random decision or something like that? Because a lot of people would argue that machines, there's certain decisions that machines can't make, and maybe choosing who lives and who dies is one of them. On the other hand, driverless cars are safer, so on net they do save more lives. So, I mean, what's the resolution here? How do we go about that? Intellience says better to have humans make the decision. Well, but we know that in the current world, with humans making the decision, they make a lot of human error. It says here 94% of traffic is attributed to human error. So on net, driverless cars might save more lives, even if they make questionable decisions. Okay, Annie actually raises a really good point. They say there's a reason for human nature to keep everything natural and balanced. And they give the example of transportation causing greenhouse gases and climate change. That's definitely a reasonable example. Um, but I would still argue that my argument still stands that it's not always good to leave everything in the most natural state. For example, I mean, climate change is obviously a big problem of human changes to the environment, but there are also positive changes that humans have had to the environment. Um, so maybe something that's natural isn't always the right like state of things. I'm gonna move on to the second question, actually. Uh, or sorry, the third question. The third question asks, would people be morally permitted to drive at all if driverless cars are on the whole safer and more reliable? Meaning that seeing that driverless cars will save more lives, would it be good to outlaw driving your car yourself? Or should we still allow driving the car yourself? Anthony, go ahead.
I think it would be better to keep cars with drivers in it, because I think it on more on a survival oriented and a moral scale, driver oriented driver driven cars are more useful, because that would give that making the transition to driverless cars would make thousands of people lose jobs, and also remote hacking is very common these days, and with remote cars, in development, they could easily be hacked and taken over. Oh, so but there's also the question where old people, yeah, they can't drive. So the solution, you could either drive them, or you could either drive old people places, or you could just issue only old people them.
Okay, that's a good point. It's probably true that with the modern technology, there's like hacking problems, and that sort of thing. And also, you mentioned a good point about unemployment.